Welcome into OverDrive on this beautiful late November afternoon. It's the replacements edition of the show. I'm Aaron Korolnik. That's Frank Corrado. That's Carlo Koliakovo. The normal occupants of these seats on the TSN hockey panel tonight ahead of the Leafs and the Kraken. So we've got 3 hours, fellas. How we doing?
Big night for them. Big night for them. Big night for us.
Yeah,
though.
It's a big night at TSN. Everyone's feeling great today. It's a
Like,
sensational working environment.
I was really excited to come on the show and do the show with you guys and be in studio and be in the OverDrive seats, but I'm already pissed off.
Okay.
I asked for two things to start the show. Two things.
You did.
Too many.
I asked for one. I asked for the NWO song because I feel like this is like the NWO takeover of radio that we are sort of, filling in for them. Like the First Stop Boys are coming in on OverDrive.
Frank.
And I get canceled by
JP.
By JP over there. Saying, no, it's not going to do that. And then I ask you nicely the same thing I do every morning. Let the music play, man.
See, here's the problem with
like,
letting the music play. This is a request from your brother Marco as well. Who's always like, AK, you're jumping on the music. We have so much good stuff to get to.
We do.
Every second is of the utmost importance, especially on a night like tonight. Talked about the Leafs and the Kraken, Thursday night football. James Duthie will be joining us around the table. Luke Wilson in studio.
None of those guys matter. You know why? Because we got Frankie
Yes,
Corrado.
well, we
Oh
do.
my
We do.
What a night here at TSN, man. There is an energy in the building. It is infectious. We were
Everybody's
talking before we came into the studio. AK was saying this is like the old days at TSN
The old
radio.
days.
Everyone was here. Everyone's congregating. There's a big buzz at Studio 6 because the boys are doing the Leaf panel. There's a great energy here.
Big party. Did anybody order any food or drinks?
That would have been a good
I don't
idea. Doogie, we might need a little bit of an order here.
You know what? Maybe
You do
the
it for
Leafs-
the other guys. Do it for us.
Maybe the Leafs will order up a nice win for the fellas on the panel tonight. Wouldn't that be something?
Well, if they were to be able to do that, they're going to have to do it without Mark Giordano tonight, who is week to week with a broken finger, further illustrating just the lack of depth that this team has on the D. And it's a little bit concerning. You're talking about Riley Brody, Lagesson and McCabe, and Simon Benoit playing with Connor Timmins on the third pair. Joseph Wall was absolutely outstanding against the Florida Panthers on Tuesday night. He's probably going to need a similar performance tonight against a Kraken team that's not exactly the top of the NHL, but considering what the Leafs have on the back end right now, they're going to need a full team effort.
I'm surprised, me and Frankie didn't get an email today asking if we'd be open up for a PTO.
Yeah.
How long would it take for you to get in somewhat
Playing
shape to play?
Playing shape.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of me the other day of in playing shape, and I see myself now. It's probably going to take me 6 months to get back into playing shape.
That's fair.
Might be a tad optimistic.
What are you talking about?
A tad optimistic.
6 months?
To get it back, I mean, you still can't walk a golf course.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
if you-
one
if
it
you-
always comes back
If
to.
you think you're going to be playing in the National Hockey League at age 40,
I guess you're right.
It could be a little bit
Was
more
your
challenging.
VO2 any good back in the day? You have
Dude,
a
that
good
was
VO2?
the worst test ever.
You didn't like that one?
What?
Where they plug your nose and you're on the bike till you
and put a
basically
tube in your
faint?
mouth
Yeah.
and have you breathe
didn't
through a
appreciate
tubing
that one?
machine while people are standing over top of you saying, harder, faster,
So if
come
you've
on,
never-
you got it.
So if you've never done that test, basically they clip your nose together, you
You're
breathe
stand-
through
you're
a tube,
yeah.
and you're on the bike, and they keep elevating the resistance of the bike, and it's up to you to keep going.
Yeah.
And at some point, you're just going to say, I can't go anymore, and they calculate your score and all that kind of stuff.
They measure your lactic acid. And your
Yeah,
VO2
all that.
capacity.
But if you've ever slept in a hotel room where it was really, really dry and you woke up in the morning and your mouth was really dry and it's very uncomfortable, it's that on the test times 10 because you're breathing through that stupid tube.
Oh, I hated it, man.
And then,
Aren't you guys glad you're broadcasters now and
Well,
not subject to that?
see,
Similar
yeah.
salaries. I mean, not a big difference in
Only
celebrity,
Frankie.
notoriety.
Frankie's
Like,
similar
but dude,
it's
then
pretty much
20,
the same.
20 minutes later, you got to go do the Wingate test where some
This guy's gonna vomit.
Some teams do it for 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds all out sprint, and you get your pedals going, and then they're gonna drop the weight, and you just
They
feel
drop
your legs.
20% of your body weight.
You just feel your legs stop, and you're like, "Oh, I have 27 more seconds to go here," and that's when they're. And some teams do it for 45. I think
yeah.
that's craziness.
There's a couple of tests that I've done similar to that, but different. So you talked about doing the VO2 on a bike. There's a treadmill you can do that too. That's elevating as you're doing it. So you're basically like you're running like up a mountain while you're doing it until you basically just hit your face plant. And then there was
That wouldn't be good.
so the other one that I did, and I did it in Detroit, which actually wasn't that bad, but it was 10 uphill sprints on 10 incline on a treadmill. So think about that. You're basically like this 10 times for 2 minutes.
And you had Mike Babcock yelling at you the entire
Well, it wasn't
time.
Mike Babcock, but yeah, he'd probably be like, "Hey, so bro, you went to see your test, and yeah, we're not going to play you tonight because your test wasn't good."
Yeah. That's as good. Yeah, he's not going to tell you that
Let me see
your
your
game's
pictures.
not good enough. He's going to tell you,
the
"Hey,
VO2?
didn't like you on that test. Actually,
Yeah.
the strength coach didn't like you, so you're not going to play."
I've told this story many times that this guy pulled me aside one day before practice and said, "I watched your practice yesterday, and I didn't like the way you practiced." I'm like,
Should have practiced.
"What do you mean
better.
you watched my practice? You're the coach. You're supposed to watch me practice." He goes, "No, I watched it on video." This guy was watching video.
Modern
Dude,
technology.
They
baby.
tape all the practices.
I know.
Now. Every once in a while, I'll go down to Leafs practice, and they got it all. Like I've seen it where they got the cameras following everything.
Nuts.
They need it, man. They need it this time of year because they're in a fight. Like they're in a wild card spot. Tampa's playing better. They got Vasilevsky back. Detroit is I watched that Detroit Rangers game last night. And the Rangers are the best team in the league right now, points wise. And Detroit gave them a good game. Like they're a good enough team that they're going to make the playoffs. So as much as Ottawa's not having a good season, Buffalo's not having a good season, maybe those teams are not where they thought they would be in the Atlantic. The Leafs are going to be they're going to have some meaningful games here where they need to start collecting some points.
Not just meaningful games, Frankie. Like challenges too. Like their defense right now is becoming a serious problem.
Got 3 AHL guys in the lineup tonight.
And you know you rewind the clock back to last year, entering December. It's almost very similar the way they entered the month of December, where they were missing Riley, Muzzin, and I believe Brody at one time too, weren't they?
All hurt at the same
time. Their top pairing was Giordano and Hall, and they won I think 5 out of 7 games with that. They had Mac Hollowell playing games for them, and now you look at their defense now with Giordano being out, and Giordano's been a warrior for this team since he's been here, and even this year, expecting a 40-year-old to play as much as he has so far this season, I think you've been sort of getting more than advertised or more than expected from Mark Giordano. But now, like, do the Maple Leafs have any room for error considering where they are in the standings to allow this group of defense to basically sort itself out? Because if it doesn't, AK and Frankie, where are we talking about the Maple Leafs being in a week, 10 days from now?
Yeah, I would say they are going to have a little margin for error because when you look at the teams that are behind, so it is Detroit and Tampa right now in the wild card spots because Toronto's got a game in hand, and that game in hand will be tonight against Seattle. It's Philly, it's the Islanders, it's the Sabres. You're probably not that concerned about
Ottawa
those teams.
is still they're not done yet.
Ottawa just hasn't played as many games, but they're not playing well either. So I would say, you're not as concerned with teams like that because you think they're going to fall back.
But the Devils and the Penguins right now are in the same position as the Maple Leafs.
Those are the two teams that everyone thought the Devils would be much better. I think the Penguins can be better. So I just think it's one of those things for the Leafs right now. They're playing so many games where the margin for error is very slim. And it's like, who's going to make the last mistake in that game? That team is going to lose that game. And it's difficult to play those games night after night after night. Like tonight would be a great night for them to take control of the game, get off to a lead, lock it down, play a neat and tidy, efficient game where the star players take over and the goalie makes some saves. And you say, like, that's a trademark of our team right there. That's exactly what a really good game from our team should look like from start to finish.
And I think we're in a spot, guys, where everybody who covers the Toronto Maple Leafs, who plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who coaches, who manages for the Toronto Maple Leafs, knows what's going on. Like, it's clear at this very moment they are not a Stanley Cup contender, what they aspire to be. But then I look back at last year and I consider just how drastic the change was before to after the trade deadline. They brought in 3 new defensemen who played for them. McCabe and Shen and Gustafson. Would I be surprised at all if the same thing happened this year with Bradshaw bringing in a brand new defense corps?
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It is going to happen.
One more defenseman injury from complete chaos.
Well, I agree. And you think about the guys who are getting hurt, Liljegren and Giordano and John Klingberg, who we'll probably never see again. They're fortunate that Morgan Riley's been able to play like seemingly 27, 28 minutes night after night.
He's been excellent.
He's been
very
outstanding.
Good this year.
And TJ Brody's had a really nice bounce back year as well. So those guys are really bearing a significant load early on in the season. Now, the ramifications on the long term, what that'll mean for Riley in March as to what he's doing in November, remain to be seen. It's not ideal for Morgan Riley to be playing 30 minutes in a mid-November game.
That's going to catch up to them.
You would imagine it would. And Morgan Riley, still a stud, but he's not a spring chicken. He's played a lot of hockey already. He's still a young guy, but at the same time, I think the Maple Leafs would love to kind of ease a little bit off those guys.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for them, there's no luxury of that because they don't have any guys that they can slide in right now because of the injuries.
And it's not even Morgan Riley because you look at Matthews and Marner, those guys are playing 21, 22 minutes a night. It was the game against the Penguins where they went 11-7. William Nylander had to play 26 minutes that night. So, like, it's going to take its toll on these guys. Like, there was one game against the Canucks at home where I think Matthews and Marner played a shade over 16 minutes. And I was at the game with Taddy, and we're saying, man, that must be nice for those guys where they could kind of mentally check out of the game. It's done. It's won. It's under control. And they don't get too many nights like that. But I don't know. At some point, there's going to be a defenseman or maybe two coming to this team. There just has to be. And I would imagine there's a lot of urgency to get that kind of maneuver done. And if I'm the Leafs, I'm trying to make that move as soon as possible. Why not?
So, Frankie, if you're the Leafs right now, you're Sheldon Keefe or you're Mike Van Ryn who runs the defense, do you maybe split up Riley and Brody? Because I'm looking at their defense core right now, like the projected 6 they got going tonight. It's Riley, Brody, Ligason, McCabe, Benoit, Timmins, and Lajoie is the guy they called up from the American League. And I know Riley and Brody are going to be asked to play a lot of those hard minutes, but it gets really thin after Jake McCabe.
Haven't you been in games like that? You must have been in games like that over your career where there's a couple guys called up. Maybe there's 3 guys called up, and you just know the guys on the top pair are going to filter in and take one of those guys on the bottom pair every once in a while for a spin. Like, it's not going to be your typical.
But then that's
1,
more
2,
increased
3
minutes
rotation.
for the big boys.
That's the nature of it. Like, that's why there's got to be some urgency here as far as filling some holes, and maybe not even filling holes, but like getting players that help put you over the top as far as what you are as a team and a decor.
So that's definitely a part of it for sure. The Maple Leafs' lack of depth in the back end has become very, very apparent in lieu of all the injuries. But then again, we've talked a lot about Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. Those guys have been separated. We expect that to happen again tonight. And the fact that Matthews has been held pointless in half the games this season, they played 20 games, he's been pointless in 10 of them. And Brad Treliving was hitting on the hit or miss, the lack of consistency from this hockey club to this point, and we're at the quarter point mark of the NHL season.
Game 20.
It's game 21 tonight.
Game 21. Correct.
Against Seattle, and then they have the Boston Bruins coming to town on Saturday night, which should be just absolutely electric down at the bank. Ooh, that'll be something special on Saturday. But you can't look past the Seattle Kraken, who aren't a great team. They've definitely regressed year over year. Last year, they were one of the great stories in the NHL. They're 8-10-2 this year. They're not exactly having the best season. But then again, if you're Seattle, you're looking at this as an opportunity. Coming off back-to-back losses, you're playing a team with 3 AHL defensemen who have gotten lit up seemingly a bunch of times on home ice. Remember that 7-game stretch where they allowed 4 goals or more, 7 games in a row, franchise record. I'm sure Seattle's looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs thinking, we can beat these guys tonight.
So I would the word I would use for tonight's game is vulnerable. I think both teams are vulnerable. If you're Seattle, you're thinking to yourself, okay, we're playing against the Maple Leafs team that's top players are struggling a bit. Their defense is really thin. Okay, Joseph Wall's coming off of a great single performance himself, but this Maple Leafs team hasn't won many games in regulation. We're talking about 5 of the 20 games in regulation and 5 of how many wins they have on the season. They have 11
wins. That's a crazy stat. San Jose, Chicago have 5, and the Toronto Maple Leafs have 5.
At least they won those games. Remember when they weren't winning over?
Honestly,
and that led to starting David Camp at the start of every overtime.
Honestly, I'm not the one to make a big deal of regulation win or not regulation win, because a win is a win in this league, especially when you have this many good teams, and especially early on this season where there's a lot of teams trying to set up the rest of their seasons with the early season success they want to have. You got to bank those points. Even if you go into games and you lose and you're still banking a point, it all adds up at the end. And and you're talking about vulnerable too. Like the Seattle Kraken are very vulnerable too. Like they've come in losing 2 in a row. Their goaltending is a bigger question mark than what the Leafs have.
Definitely.
Grubauer has not been anywhere
brutal.
close to the goalie he was last year. They got Joey Decord, who's filling in as a backup. I think the Seattle Kraken are thinking they're sitting there thinking, man, we really miss Martin Jones. Martin Jones won a lot of games for the Seattle Kraken last year.
Even though he had a sub
third
900, but he still, I guess the team won games and they played well and they found a way to score by committee. But you bring up a good point with the goaltending in Seattle. I think that's what makes it ripe for the picking for Austin Matthews tonight.
Yes.
Like
Marner hasn't had a point in 3 games. Austin Matthews, you talk about, half of his points are or all of his points are in half of the games the Maple Leafs play. If I'm the Maple Leafs coming off of a performance like last game where you basically got lucky with a win because of a review, okay?
The double tap.
And then you're talking about, going 0 for 6 on the power play. With that much talent, like in a game like that, I said it, Frankie, that power play has to be the difference in a game that's that tight against Florida. And it wasn't. If anything, it was the opposite. They got too many men on the ice penalty while they were on the power play trying to close out the game. Power play has to be the difference tonight against a very vulnerable Seattle team.
25th ranked power play in the NHL for Seattle. So you got to take advantage.
Penalty kill.
Yes. I don't know why I keep screwing that up. Whenever we talked about that, I keep messing that up.
You're off. We're used to doing morning.
That's true. Yeah. Usually we wake up at 5. I woke up at 8 a.m. today. Can you believe that? What a sleep in.
Dude, I felt so weird this morning. I'm not going to lie to
you. James Duthie will join us around the table on the other side, the host of the Leafs and the Kraken. Of course, Brian Hayes, Jeff O'Neill, and Jamie McLennan will be joining JD for the Leafs and the Kraken game. We're looking forward to that. Luke Wilson will also join us in studio just after 5.
Where's he going to sit?
I don't know. Maybe over there in the corner.
Beside me.
We'll figure it out.
Try not to be too starstruck by him.
It's hard not to be. Luke Wilson's the man. We'll play some Pigeon or Peacock, a first up staple at 5:30, and the voices of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph, join us just after 6 o'clock. It's hour 1 of Overdrive here on TSN 4. I'm Aaron Karolnik, Frank Corrado, Carlo Koliakovo around the table. You're listening to TSN 1050. We're back here on Overdrive. I'm Aaron Karolnik. That's Frank Corrado. That's Carlo Koliakovo. We're in for the usual fellows who will be part of the TSN hockey panel alongside the man we have with us in studio. Man revered around these parts. Many Gemini Awards by me mostly.
Okay,
it's James.
You're
Duthie.
literally the only one.
That might be the case. James, I was watching a lot of the Hero World Challenge before we get to the big evening here at TSN, the panel, and Brandel Chambly was talking about how tour pros have told him that Tiger Woods sends text to them at 4 a.m. saying, "I'm in the gym. What are you doing to get better?"
Get out of here.
Now, I know you've done that many times to me as well. I get text from you. I wake up and I look at my phone
at 5:30.
At 5:30, yes, he's like, "I'm in the gym. How are you improving your broadcasting?"
I don't buy a lot of this crap.
The Tiger.
Well, I'm not going to say that it's what's her name, the sideline reporter who got in trouble.
Carissa Thompson.
It's not. It's
How dare you go
Charissa
there?
Thompson, right?
Oh.
I always say Clarissa. It's Charissa.
I think
apparently.
Carissa. Yes.
Oh, isn't there an H in there?
Yes.
There is. I think it's a silent.
Charissa.
That's
Not
why you
Charissa?
say Charissa.
Oh. I've said Clarissa for about 15 years. So.
You're professional
Where were we?
broadcasting.
Tiger Woods.
Oh yeah, I think that they, there's a tendency in our business. You want to have a story, and especially in golf when you're filling so much air, and everybody wants a Tiger story. That I think there's elements of truth in what they say. But I don't think he's randomly texting Keegan Bradley at 4 a.m. and saying, "I'm in the gym. Where are you?"
I might start doing that.
I don't think that.
What
maybe,
good is being up that early?
maybe to JT or
Gonna
something
do
as a
for
joke.
Tiger. We get up that early every morning.
We
You know how
do.
crap we feel on the golf course?
Yeah,
If we get up
it's
early
not
those
great.
days?
Well, it's not paying off for Tiger, at least in his first tournament back in 236 days. I think he's 3 over par through 17. He's on 18 now.
He's done. No, he's done now.
Is he done now? Did he finish at 3 over?
Yeah, I haven't been doing the show. He finished at 3 over, but you know what? There were enough good things there. He did that goofy thing. He ended up in a bush.
Yeah.
We were watching that. We're like, take the
He totally did
penalty.
exactly what I would do.
I've seen you do that.
Instead of trying to, he just had this awkward stance. And do you ever do that? You get in one of those situations, and you're in like a bush or a tree, and you're
Gotta do hockey grip.
You're looking at it like, should I do this or not? And then you just like something comes over and you just say, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah,
and you
I'm
just
gonna
take a
whack
whack. That's what he did, and it went like a foot.
Yeah.
And he was screwed and made a 7 on the easiest hole in the golf course.
I actually have video of him trying to do that.
We need to
Remember?
find that. I know exactly
Yes,
the
you do.
video. Yeah. That was
Beacon
a,
Hall.
That was a tough day for JD.
right.
That was a tough day for
day all
JD.
around.
It was a great
Three
day, but a
whacks
tough
at
day.
it.
But you know what? For a guy who hasn't played in whatever 200 days, I thought there was enough good things in there that
I get it. We all love watching Tiger Woods playing on the PGA Tour, playing golf tournaments, but me and him had this discussion on our show, James. Do you actually believe he's capable of winning again?
yes, only if he stays healthy for, let's say, this 3 to 5 year window and there's not a setback. Like, I think that he could have one of those, in a smaller field, perfect days. Maybe
He's
it's
going
like
to play once a month.
I don't think if you were to say wager right now, I'd probably wager no. Although like the Hero Challenge has 25 guys or
20.
something. in it.
20 of the best.
So he could win something
20
like
of the
that.
best.
If he plays all year, he could win something like that next year. Will he win the Masters? Probably not. I mean that ship is probably.
But it'd be great to watch him playing it, though.
I
right?
would take it. I would.
You're watching.
I would take it as a huge victory if he's in contention one Sunday,
Oh.
somewhere along the way in the next 2 to 3 years. Just give us one contending moment.
Is it just the nostalgia of what we grew up with watching
Yes.
Tiger every Sunday winning? And it's like there's a certain aura about it. Like we know what he is now. We know what his game is, his health, but it's still that like, man, what if it happens? What if I get to live that out again, watching it all day on Sunday and watch Tiger roar up the leaderboard?
I mean, what 2019 was it, the Masters? Like that was one of the most incredible experiences of my career. Just being in that massive, in the crowd. I remember he made this 2-putt on 9, and he made the turn, and he either was in the lead or one off the lead, and it was sort of a realization by everyone that this was happening. And the electricity in that crowd was something I've never witnessed before. And like I said, I don't think it'll happen again at that level, but even if he sniffs it, it's something else. And I know there's certain people, and we get it on our Masters coverage, certain people get mad when they're showing Tiger all the time and he's 9 shots off the lead. But I think you just have to accept the reverence
he's the GOAT.
of being the greatest ever.
We wouldn't have the Scheffler. We wouldn't have these
none
guys
of
if
them.
it wasn't for Tiger and what he did.
And if you tuned in the Golf Channel this morning, the tournament was ongoing, and they weren't showing anyone's shots. They were
rain.
showing Tiger putting.
Right.
That was great. I loved it. It was probably the most electric part of my day. All right, let's get to our night ahead, Jamie.
What a
You
night.
are hosting the panel.
I am.
With Brian, Jamie, and Jeff, who normally occupy these seats. Can you give us a hint as to anything we can expect? Any wild hijinks that you
I don't
might have
know
come up with?
because this is going to be the easiest night of my career. Because, I mean, Hayes is the host, and my job is to just let OverDrive do their thing and just stay out of the way.
Hayes is sitting in your seat?
No, Hayes, I'm just saying these 3 guys do their magical job.
Right.
I'm just here as traffic cop. Because there was an incident last time when Hayes, there's nuance between hosting a television program and a radio program, right? Hayes had some issues like we have these things called bumpers where you show some video coming up on the pregame show. Mystic Mike with his predictions and Mark Masters talks to Sheldon Keefe. And there's a little video that matches that. And in the ear, you're getting counted down when to shut up. James, shut up in 5, 4, 3. And Hayes kind of missed that count, and he just kept talking right into the commercial. And so I think they figured, let's just let Hayes be the opinionist that Hayes has become, let him do his thing, and I can just do all the little stupid things of getting us to break.
So it's going to be you,
Me?
Hayes,
Me, I think.
O-Dog, Noodles.
I have a feeling, I don't know this.
O's not changing his seat.
There's a chance that Hayes is going to be in the Bob McKenzie Memorial Pavilion, the most
wow.
prestigious
Goodness.
spot
The pressure.
on the TSN panel. I mean, it's been handed from Bob to Dregs, like 2 of the most distinguished broadcasting journalists, I think, in the history of covering hockey in Canada. Those are the only 2, I believe, who've sat there over the years, and now Brian Hayes will step into that position.
You know, it'd be great when you do the quiz if you actually had an extra belt made and you give it to both Noodles and Hayes and still leave O-Dog out.
I have an idea. I am supposed to be the impartial judge of the quiz and hand the belt to the best performance on the quiz. I have an idea tonight. I will listen to the quiz, but I have an idea of something I might do, and it'll be worth tuning into. Let's just say first intermission, the quiz.
Wow.
Maybe a historic
I
night.
mean, this could be the most highly rated edition of OverDrive and the most highly rated edition of Maple Leafs hockey on TSN. I mean, Bell stock tomorrow morning, JD, 9:30 a.m. It's going to be a rocket
In
ship.
intermission, can you tune into the Habs panel that I'm doing and maybe get my intermission?
Yeah, I'll do that. Well,
No plugs there. Pretend that doesn't happen. I think we might be ignoring that one. I don't know about the
Well, I
ratings on
said
that.
before when we're going to have first up on the TSN panel, and maybe we can include Frankie.
Yeah,
in that.
of course.
Frank-
Sure.
I mean,
Whatever.
personally, I would go with Aradas Vondi, our producer, but Frankie's a good
20
alternative, or
that,
20
that would be a good bit if you had a Rod and he was just eating a sandwich the whole time. He
right.
never spoke.
That's right. We did show you that video before
Yeah.
the show. I don't understand why
Has that
we
been
brought
on
that
air
up.
yet or no?
No, I don't
No,
think the
no.
people want to
Oh.
see that.
We were
That
just
is
showing how we were.
I think you
We were
should.
sharing how much we love Arada.
Yeah, that's
A
rated
Rod
R.
eats a sandwich more passionately than any love scene I've seen in any film.
It's hard to disagree with
It's-
that.
it's
He
incredible.
is having himself a time with that panini in
Yeah.
Italy. He really
All right,
is.
JD. So we understand what Leafs Game Day is all about on TSN4. Like, you guys are coming up with the storylines. How's it going to work for you tonight? Are you just going to say, well, the biggest storyline is where the Leafs are at, and here, you three, go ahead and talk about it and kill 3.5 minutes?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
I think that people probably, the thing that people at home don't know is how much it is produced in the sense of, look, we try to have a free-flowing discussion, but when you're doing television, you have to have video that supports the topic.
Yeah, we
you know.
prepare it throughout the day. Like,
yeah.
you're on the phone with Billy and Quizmaster,
Right.
like, at least a handful
So
of
we
times.
have a good idea when we go into the show. It'll be like, okay, let's start talking about, let's say, Matthews and Marner's slump. And maybe we'll have a graphic that illustrates it. And then Frankie will have what we call a libero, where he's done something where he's got all sorts of arrows and stuff shooting across the screen to show why, not like your low-tech stuff you do at home
Thank
with your
you.
computer when you just kind of point.
TikTok
point at the-
superstar you're
Coach-
talking
Coach
about.
Frankie.
The guy's massive.
Yes.
But so yeah, we will tonight. I think I'm just going to have a list of topics and say, go.
Yeah.
And see where it goes, because that's what these guys do. And like I said, I just want to stay out of the way and let them do their show.
I just got a question to ask. I don't know if you guys are seeing it because I'm standing or sitting right next to James, but like,
A lot of makeup.
is this James or is he
Yeah.
wearing a mask?
I said coming in, I walked in.
Is Cameron Diaz
You guys-
coming in here?
you guys-
Can we pull off the mask?
The makeup room.
You're not on till 7. You're
The makeup
4:30.
room at TSN is a game of Russian roulette, because we have a variety of very talented makeup artists,
A
but they
variety,
all
yes.
do very different things.
All amazing, by the way.
All amazing, wonderful people, and people have different demands. Like, Carlos in there for like an hour and a half with the hair and stuff going, and other people just walk in, like O-Dog maybe gets a little powder and that's it. Bob McKenzie refused to even go in the room. So, but some of them will just give you a little bit of powder. Maybe sometimes I have the tired eyes, so they'll give you a little bit of under eye. That's it. But some, it's like, today was the full paintbrush. And I walked out of there feeling like a car that had just been painted. And so I'm looking on the screen here.
You look
I
great.
don't know
You're
if it's
tanned.
noticeable.
You look great.
You got
Yeah.
a great tan. Where are you
Yeah.
golfing?
Have you been to Turks and Caicos recently, James?
It does look ridiculous. Like, look at my skin color next to
Let's do a
Carlos.
zoom in, Joe, from the
Carlos
bridge.
pale
Get in there
white.
close.
And I have some sort
But that
of...
might tell you something. You might need to be getting to bed a little earlier here.
Yeah?
Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah?
I personally thought you had your own makeup person and they just were like on staff for you.
Oh, no.
And like,
I think like the national news host usually has that. Like Lloyd Robertson used to have someone. I think all of them have had someone along the way. I do not have my own personal. Most of the time, I have my own powder that I just do myself. I put a little powder on,
Yeah.
and that's all you do.
You're a man of the people.
You know.
You look great. You're
Oh,
going to
buddy.
sound great.
I don't know.
I
There's a
can't
lot-
wait.
There's a lot going on
shirt
there.
And tie combo is
Yeah, that's
top-notch,
all right,
dude.
right?
You're repping the
There's a lot of
Seattle
green going on
Kraken
here.
right there with
Yeah,
your
what's
tie.
that all about?
O-Dog walked into the makeup room when I was getting painted, and he had this. Wow, he had a jacket on.
What a tease.
And he said, what do you think of this, Jimmy? And it was like a bright red plaid checkered thing that I'd never seen. O-Dog's pretty conservative. Like, he just likes the basic
Plain.
blue suits. This thing was out there. And
Loud?
It was loud. And he said, I don't think I can pull this off. I said, you have to. This is OverDrive night on the panel. But I think he's changing.
OverDrive night on the panel featuring James Duthie. We can't wait to watch it, JD. Once we're done here on OverDrive, we'll be heading over to Studio 6 and watching it with our own eyes. We encourage our audience to do the exact same. Thanks for popping by, buddy.
Come for the OverDrive, guys. Stay for the wicked makeup.
There you go. That's James Duthie. Leafs Kraken on TSN tonight. We continue here on TSN 4 and TSN 1050. Korolnik, Corrado, Koliakovo. That's a lot of Cocos right there. And I got to get into what happened last night down at the Raptors game. I was there.
What a
Drake
game.
was there. And the Raptors pulling off a big win over the Suns. We'll talk a lot about the Maple Leafs game tonight against the Kraken. Luke Wilson will join us in studio. We're chock full of greatness here on Overdrive, TSN 4, TSN 1050. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Aaron Korolnik, Frank Corrado, and Carlo Koliakovo with you until 7 p.m. There's something called a backhaul feed here at TSN where you can see what's going on behind the scenes without it being on the air. And we're seeing what's going on in Studio 6 ahead of Leafs and Kraken. It's going to be something. It's top secret. I won't reveal, but I mean, legitimately, people.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at you, camera, directly. Watch this game tonight on TSN 4. It's going to be special.
Let's just say at 6:30, you can switch over from us and watch the Leafs pregame show because there's going to be a little surprise for everyone.
A big surprise.
Yeah.
A big surprise. It was a big surprise for me last night, going down to Scotiabank Arena and seeing the Raptors take it to the Phoenix Suns.
Oh.
A team that had won 7 games in a row. Durant was back. Devin Booker's been one of the best players in the NBA this year. And the Raptors really just dominated them from start to finish, relinquishing the lead only a couple of times. And Scotty Barnes was great. And then Drake gave he didn't give a great speech post-game. It was actually a very mediocre speech post-game. We'll let you hear about that. But I'm starting to notice a trend here. Games in which Drake attends, teams come into town, like the Milwaukee Bucks earlier in the season, Drake's sitting there courtside. The Raptors crush them. Last night, Phoenix comes to town. They're rested. The Raptors landed at 4 a.m. the night before. They had some plane troubles, and they just
From
took it
Brooklyn.
Exactly. And they took it to the Phoenix Suns, one of the best teams in the Western Conference. What is Drake getting these guys up to the night before games, like Giannis and Lillard and Durant and Booker, that as the Raptors,
It's something to
picking up
really
wins.
question, AK.
Well, and you look on the FanDuel, like the Raptors are 3-point underdogs, and I'm like, how is this possible?
So the same thing
They
against
know.
Milwaukee.
They know.
Milwaukee, they were coming in 5-point favorites, and they're one of the best teams in the league against the Raptors that were struggling. You're like, what is wrong with this line? Something is
Fishy.
very fishy. And then last night, the same thing. And then you and I start to talk about Drake, and I don't know how you feel about Frank, but I think there's something sketchy going on with the players coming into town.
Durant, come on by for a couple drinks before the
Exactly.
game
That's
or
what
the
it
night
is.
before.
Big party up at the bridal path, get everyone over, and listen, if it's going to work to the Raptors' advantage, which I guess it is, but Scotty Barnes is playing like a beast right now. He is fully arrived and on the scene, and that's great news for Raptors fans. And like, I don't know, there was talk a couple of years ago, like, do you move on from Scotty Barnes if it's going to bring you Kevin Durant? I don't know.
Kevin Durant looked pretty good last night, though. Too.
I know, but they made the right choice in keeping Scotty Barnes on that team.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess you could look at it in a number of different ways, right? Where Durant's been banged up a lot. He's up there. I think he's 34, 35 years old, but he's still got it. And I was watching courtside. I did not sit courtside. I was watching courtside before the game. Durant warm up, and Coco, it brought back memories of 2019.
When me and you used to go for every warm up.
Game 5, NBA Finals. Durant comes back from the calf injury, plays 10 minutes, scores 12 points, tears his Achilles.
Yeah.
Standing right next to you and your brother Paulo, and a couple of the individuals were cheering when that happened. I won't name names. It wasn't me. And
You're way too classy for that.
Absolutely, way too classy for that. And I just remember the feeling in the building was so weird. And when it was weird that when Durant was introduced yesterday, there were cheers. And that's very rare for opposing players to come in. But Kevin Durant's one of the all-time greats. There's a lot of respect.
But there was also a recognition in that moment, that game we were at, where when he went down, the feeling like with Raptors fans is, oh my God, Durant is hurt. He's probably going to leave this game in the excitement of winning. But when he left that court, he left to a standing ovation. Like, fans recognized who Kevin Durant was, what he represents, and what it meant moving forward. Clearly, everybody knew he was never going to come back in that series, and they were just making sure that he was recognized in the right way. But like, he's still one of the most dominant players in the NBA. Still got a lot in his game, and we don't have to revisit the whole Kevin Durant situation. At the end of the day, Scotty Barnes is the future of this Raptors team, and I think last night was a great example, coming off of a back-to-back where the team didn't really have a good game in Brooklyn. They squandered a lead and found a way to lose that game. But the response we saw from Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam last night was incredibly impressive.
They played really, really well. Against a tough Phoenix team. They were coming in with 7 wins in a row. They were the rested team. Well, maybe not so rested if they were hanging out with Drake.
What's Drake up to?
Well, the Raptors got in at 4 a.m. The Phoenix Suns might have got back to their hotel after the Raptors were getting home from the Bird.
I was at the game with our buddy Alex Sirizotti, and we were talking about Drake, and we were trying to picture, like, what does Drake's night look like? Pre-game, post-game, at halftime? Like, what type of nefarious activities is this individual getting up to?
Dude, when you're that guy,
I can't even imagine.
When you're that guy and you got that kind of bankroll and that kind of Rolodex, it can look like literally whatever you want it to look like. That's what it can look like. So,
do we have the audio of like what he sounded like?
We should. Actually, that's a good idea. So Drake went into the room after the game, and the Raptors were celebrating. And
this is why this is a story.
Scotty Barnes is wearing the chain. He was, I don't know, the dog of the game or whatever they call it. And Darko Rajakovic, the coach of the Toronto Raptors, had Drake say a few words, and here's how it sounded.
Together on three. 1, 2, 3. Come on, big dog.
What's up, Coach?
What you got for us?
Oh, what do I have?
Yeah, man, you're part of the team.
By the way, incredible win. You see, look at my dog has a chain on. Saw a lot of synergy, a lot of sharing the ball, a lot of great plays made. Congratulations, boys. It's a regular season win, but it's a great win nonetheless. It is what it is. We gotta celebrate. Gotta celebrate.
We had season record of 44 deflections today, and Scotty had 10 deflections. He wants to get it to win that sweet.
There we go. Together on three. 1, 2, 3. Together.
Like, where else do you see that
Synergy.
And
it's like he's a corporate guy.
Darko says
synergies.
Darko says, "What do you mean? You're part of the team."
Yeah,
he tells
global ambassador.
Drake that he's part of the team.
He is. He's part of the team.
Does he play the game?
Well, in spirit, he's part of the team. I guess.
How is Drake part of the team? Because he's an ambassador of the team.
Well,
Yes,
if
yes.
he's getting Kevin Durant and Devin Booker to play like they did last night,
then,
Booker
yeah,
especially.
That's a team player, right?
The one thing I noticed in Drake's comments there, it's a regular season win, but it's a win nonetheless. Yeah. Where Drake is a guy, and he's been to a couple games this year. I'm not saying he's not a Raptors fan, but back in 2019, you think Drake was missing any games during the playoffs? No, because I think Drake and basically everybody acknowledges this team is not a title contender. They might not even make the playoffs this year. They might be complete sellers ahead of the trade deadline. So, yeah, it's a regular season win, but...
It would have been funny if Drake walked in, he's like, I got you, boys. I did my part last night. You guys did your part today. That's a team effort. That's the synergy.
I did see Austin Matthews was wearing the Soto hat at practice this morning. Maybe that's where everybody went after the game.
There you go.
Drake's like, guys, you go and enjoy Soto or whatever. Maybe it's Harbor 60. But again, if there was just a camera on Drake for a night, like last night, although it's like a Wednesday night in Toronto, a weekend, a green light special evening for Drake, that's something I'd pay a lot of money
Drake's probably
to see.
getting the chef to come to the house and do up the whole thing there. Big party there. It's all like when you're that big like Drake, it's at the house.
Okay, so let's pivot into hockey with this. Who would be the Toronto Maple Leaf version of that guy to come in and give a post-game speech and
Bieber.
rally the guy?
Got to be Bieber.
Yeah,
Okay, but he doesn't do it.
No, he lives in L.A., right? So
But he still comes to games.
He comes to a couple.
They have a
games
whole
a year.
merchandise brand.
They do. The Drew
centered
brand.
around Bieber.
They do. But I don't know if Bieber's the guy who's going to rally the troops, But
I don't know.
Drake,
Was
he's
the
the global
Rock,
ambassador.
Did the Rock go in the Leafs dressing room?
Do you remember when
I
The
don't think he
Rock
went into
was there and he's like, instead of
go Leafs.
let's go Leafs instead of go Leafs go,
Yeah.
which was a little bit
Well, and then
difficult.
Sheldon Keefe talked about I guess The Rock said can I chant "Let's go Leafs"? And Sheldon Keefe said, "You can chant whatever you want, man. Just
You
don't
are-
eat me.
you are
can
The
do whatever
Rock.
you want.
Don't put me in a headlock.
You are in
Gonna give him
charge.
the people's elbow later.
Yeah, exactly. A rock bottom if you
There we
disrespect
go.
Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
But that's something. That would be quite the experience. And I don't know if we'll ever get to experience it.
Like who
the
would
Drake
be-
experience.
Like
but
who would
we'll
be
see.
like the biggest celebrity at the game tonight for the Leafs?
Leafs Kraken?
Yeah.
I don't know. Ron Francis, maybe? I don't know.
Austin Matthews.
Yeah, probably.
Well, yeah.
Austin
William Nylander in Sweden. That's the biggest celebrity at the game.
Of course, the players. I'm talking about like people attending.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're all in the
They
studio.
get the blue carpet
TSN4.
out. Like I've been in there doing games, and they get the blue carpet out, and they put them on the jumbotron. I don't know. People make their way through the
Like
arena.
somebody from the Leaf alumni box.
Yeah, I mean,
like
Darcy
Wendell,
Tucker.
Darcy.
No, like Will Arnett will be in there every once in a while. They got people. They got
Could be
celebrities
Mike
at
Myers, a
Do
little
they
Austin
still
Powers
do the welcome
redux.
back during the games? Remember when you say welcome
No,
back?
they don't do that anymore.
And it'd be like in the middle of a commercial, they'd bring back like a famous either former Maple Leaf or famous person.
The famous person, they do the blue carpet. Like Tom Hanks' son was there this season. I saw
So they
him.
still do that at every game?
Not every game. If there's someone noteworthy,
Right,
they'll do it.
right.
Yeah. I've
Gotta
seen
get down
you hand
there.
out the jersey. To
Oh,
the,
yeah.
I've done the
military jersey.
military jersey. Yeah,
We might
You
have our
done
boy
it?
Carlo
No, I've
Koliakovo
never done it.
You've
as
never
part
done
of
it?
our trivia questions later today as well. So
We're
we got to
trivia
get.
today?
I'm not. Yeah, well, something we're cooking up in the
Oh.
6 o'clock hour.
All right.
For the audience more so than for us.
Love
But we
trivia.
got to get Frank giving out that Jack, giving out
It's all
that.
good. It's all good. We need a big
We'll work on
crowd
it.
pop. Carlo provides that.
Oh,
He
but
provides
Frank Corrado with his TikTok audience would be
TikTok.
completely,
That's such a
completely
that's
different.
such a nerdy thing to say. Your
See,
TikTok
Frankie's
audience.
making so much money on TikTok now with his videos
Can you monetize that?
that they actually had to, the Leafs had to change the sponsors on their helmets.
Pizza
'Cause
pizza.
from
The pizza pizza?
TikTok to pizza because they're paying you all the
Dude, when I saw that, I could guarantee someone got a chirp in the dressing room like, "Oh, Pizza's the new sponsor, eh? Don't be throwing any pizzas up the middle." Like someone got that comment, guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
such a layup.
that pass was sponsored by Pizza.
Yeah,
Pizza.
well, you wonder
yeah.
if
I had a few of those.
If Joe Bone and Jim Ralph might bring that up in the broadcast tonight. You could hear it on TSN 1050, and we have seen a couple pizzas the last couple of nights for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maybe not so much against Florida, but I think about Jake McCabe. I think about TJ Brody. Have had a couple of plays in their own zone. They probably want to clean up a little bit, and considering what the Leafs have on the back end tonight,
I actually think
I
like,
wonder
you know,
what it'll look
if,
like.
If you look at the games, minus the Chicago game, okay, because that was just a game that I think a lot of us expected there to be sloppy play considering the layoff. But you go back to the Pittsburgh game and just recently the Florida game, the Leafs have been a lot better defensively with the group that they have.
They're trending that way.
They're trending
Yeah.
that way.
It was ugly for a while.
Oh,
like
was it ever?
slot shots like crazy, quality chances, quantity of chances. Like it wasn't great for them in their own zone. They are making steps to head in the right direction, so that's encouraging. But it obviously takes time, and obviously getting a save is going to help with that
big time.
as you move on here. And Joseph Wall gets the start tonight.
And I think don't
Which
you
is
think
smart.
don't you think there's real value? At least the last couple games I've seen it with the guys that are missing, that there's more simpler plays that the D are making instead of looking for that home run pass all the time.
Yeah, and it probably has to be. It has to be that way.
Has to-
Like,
and maybe that's the sort of glass half full with this thin group right now. Is you got guys in there, and the message just from the coach is, guys, just keep it simple. Make the first pass that you see, get it out if you have no play. And if the puck gets in our forwards' hands in the neutral zone, they'll find a way to create offense when they get in there. But you don't need to go and do more than you're capable.
that was
of.
the old like Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh was so big on.
They won a Stanley Cup like that.
No, seriously, not even joking. Mike Sullivan was like, if you're a defenseman, get the puck out of your hands and into the forward's hands as quick as humanly possible. Because at the time, when they won those Stanley Cups, it was Crosby, Kunitz, Dupuis playing on that line, Malkin.
Right.
Like, they had so much talent up front that it was like, we don't want you guys handling the puck.
Right.
Let them handle the puck. And so you look at the Leafs team, it's like, yeah, I want Matthews, Marner, Nylander.
Puck in their hands.
I want those guys carrying the puck all night, them bringing it up the ice. Let's not be going D to D, back to D, trying to force things into the middle of the ice. And I will say, like, we have seen, I think the McCabe pass to Matthews in the middle of the ice to start the third period in Chicago. Like, he puts him in a tough spot there. But sometimes out of necessity, you look who's playing below you. You're like, all right, I can't be the one that messes up, because at some point there's probably a little room in the budget for those guys to have a play or a blunder here and there, but I can't be that guy anymore because I need to be the veteran guy who makes the simple play, the hard play, and I got to play a lot tonight.
Right. So what year was that they won the Stanley Cup without Chris Letang? Is
That would have been
17?
it was 16. They won in 15 and 16.
So they went back to back, but the first year they won it
they
without
won it
Letang.
in 16. They won it without.
It was like
Without
Ron
Letang.
Hainsey.
Yeah,
was like
and
the top
like
pair.
Ron Hainsey, Mark
I remember
Streit.
speaking to a member of that team, and they basically said the coaching strategy was for those defensemen, go back and get it, and your first play is just to flip it up into the neutral zone. Don't spend any time on our end. Let our forwards put pressure on their guys on bouncing pucks and stuff like that. Get possession. Let our forwards take it over. They won a Stanley Cup with that type of defense.
They did. And listen, over an 82 game season, you want to make passes, you want to hit guys clean out of the zone, all that kind of stuff. It's all valid, but every once in a while when you need to weather a storm, I think the teams that recognize when to have that element to their game, like those are the teams that can adapt to any kind of situation. And sometimes the Leafs have been guilty in years past of saying, no, this is how we play. We do this. And it's like, sometimes that's just not available to you. So you do need to adapt.
I don't know how you feel, Frankie, but was there ever, like, to me, one of the best feelings of playing defense was completing a tape-to-tape pass.
Yes.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Like, you think about it, like
Up
in
through
your
the
own
guts
end
of the ice.
Oh, up to your own end. Like, you don't want to be that boring type. It's like, oh, off the glass and out. It's like, find me that tape and I'm just gonna snap it.
Here's
tape
the
to
best
tape.
one for you. You're in your own zone and you make a pass right through the guts of the ice. But as you made that pass, you slid it through someone's triangle.
Oh,
too.
yes.
And you're like, yeah, who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy?
It's like flushing a wedge, right? When you're on the golf course, just perfect compression.
What's
would be
that
the
feel
equivalent.
like?
Well,
When
yeah, I
you
couldn't
sau-
tell you.
when you sauce
I've heard
one,
it's nice. I've
when
heard
you
it's
sauce
nice.
one through the middle of the neutral zone, cross ice, and you're like, oh yeah, don't hit anything, don't hit anything. And when it hits the tape, you're like,
Yeah.
ooh, that was nice.
AK's going to show us what that feels like in broadcast form
Yeah.
when he sends us to break right
I'm
now.
going to
Yes.
do my best.
Flush it.
We've got
Flush
Luke
it.
Wilson, TSN NFL analyst, ahead of a huge Thursday nighter, the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks, his former team. And we'll also get the pick of Team Owen Wilson as well. We'll have Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph join us live from Scotiabank Arena in the third hour of the show as well. You're watching OverDrive on TSN 4, listening on TSN 1050.